The housewife glanced nervously out of her kitchen window, her heart racing as she spotted the plumber's van pulling into the driveway. She knew their secret meetings were risky, but the thrill was too intoxicating to resist. As he stepped inside, their eyes locked, and the tension between them was palpable. The suburban facade was perfect, but beneath it, dangerous desires simmered. Everett Holloway's rise to success was a testament to his unwavering ambition and sharp intellect. Born to middle-class parents, he had always possessed a keen understanding of numbers and a drive to prove himself. After graduating from the University of Minnesota with a degree in finance, Everett quickly climbed the corporate ladder at Pinnacle Investments, one of Minneapolis's most prestigious financial firms. By the age of 35, Everett had become the youngest partner in the firm's history, known for his shrewd investment strategies and ability to close even the most challenging deals. His corner office on the 40th floor of the Pinnacle Tower offered a panoramic view of the city he had conquered, a daily reminder of how far he had come. Colleagues described Everett as brilliant but ruthless, a man who would stop at nothing to achieve his goals. Alana Holloway had once harbored dreams as vivid and colorful as the canvases she loved to paint. The daughter of a renowned art professor at the Minneapolis College of Art and Design, Alana had shown promise as an artist from a young age. Her abstract paintings, with their bold strokes and emotive use of color, had garnered attention in local galleries. During her college years, however, the practical concerns of adult life had slowly eroded her artistic aspirations. After marrying Everett at 24, Alana found herself swept up in the world of corporate wives, charity galas, and country club memberships. Her paint-stained jeans and eclectic studio apartment were replaced by designer dresses and a showcase home in Maple Grove. While she still painted occasionally, her works now adorned the walls of their home rather than gallery spaces, a constant reminder of the path not taken. To the outside world, the Holloways were the epitome of success. Their annual Christmas parties were the talk of the neighborhood. Everett and Alana moved through social circles with ease, he with his sharp wit and she with her warm smile and effortless charm. They were fixtures at charity events, always ready with a generous donation and a quotable soundbite for the local press. Yet behind closed doors, the cracks in their relationship were becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Everett's long hours at the office and frequent business trips left Alana feeling isolated and unfulfilled. She yearned for the passion and creativity of her youth, feelings that seemed increasingly distant in the face of endless social obligations and the pressure to maintain their immaculate image. For his part, Everett found himself growing frustrated with what he perceived as Alana's lack of ambition. He couldn't understand why she wasn't content with the life he had provided, why she still clung to her hobby of painting when she could be networking with other corporate wives or involving herself in more prestigious charitable causes. Dominic Reeves had always been a man caught between two worlds. Raised in a blue-collar family in North Minneapolis, he had learned the value of hard work from an early age, helping his father with plumbing jobs on weekends and during summer breaks. His natural aptitude for the trade, combined with his father's tutelage, had made him one of the most sought-after plumbers in the Twin Cities by his late 20s. But Dominic possessed another gift, one that seemed at odds with the gritty nature of his chosen profession. With chiseled features, piercing green eyes, and a physique honed by years of physical labor, Dominic had the looks of a model straight out of a fashion magazine. It was a passing comment from a satisfied customer, the wife of a local talent agent, that led Dominic to explore this other side of himself. Soon Dominic found himself living a double life. By day he donned work boots and carried a toolbox, expertly navigating the intricacies of pipes and fixtures. By night and on weekends, he slipped into designer clothes and struck poses for cameras, his image gracing local billboards and magazine ads. It was on a sweltering Tuesday in June when Dominic first crossed paths with Alana Holloway. A routine call about a leaky faucet brought him to the house. As Alana opened the door, Dominic was struck by her natural beauty. As Dominic worked on the faucet, the two fell into easy conversation. Alana, starved for intellectual stimulation, was surprised and delighted by Dominic's knowledge of art. He spoke passionately about a recent exhibit he had seen at the Walker Art Center, his eyes lighting up as he described the interplay of light and shadow in the paintings. For the first time in years, Alana felt truly seen and heard. As Dominic packed up his tools, their eyes met, and a spark of connection passed between them. Little did either of them know that this chance encounter would set in motion a series of events that would irrevocably alter the course of their lives. In the weeks following their initial encounter, Alana found herself inventing reasons to call Dominic back to the house, a stubborn clog in the guest bathroom, a mysterious knocking in the pipes, a sudden need to update the fixtures in the powder room. Each issue, no matter how trivial, became an excuse to see the handsome plumber again. Dominic, for his part, was all too happy to oblige. He found himself looking forward to these service calls more than any modeling gig or high-paying plumbing job. Their conversations during these visits grew longer and more personal. Alana confided in Dominic about her abandoned dreams of becoming an artist, while he shared stories of his struggles to balance his two careers and find his place in the world. One afternoon, as Dominic was finishing up some work on the main floor bathroom, Alana invited him to see her art studio, a converted sunroom that Everett had grudgingly allowed her to use for her hobby. As they stood surrounded by her canvases, some finished and others works in progress, Dominic was struck by the raw emotion evident in her brushstrokes. Without thinking, he reached out and took her hand, telling her how talented she was and how she shouldn't give up on her dreams. The touch of his hand sent a current through Alana's body. Before either of them fully realized what was happening, they were in each other's arms, years of pent-up longing and desire pouring out in a passionate kiss. From that moment, Alana and Dominic's relationship evolved into a full-blown affair. They seized every opportunity to be together, their encounters a heady mix of physical passion and emotional connection. Dominic would arrive under the guise of performing routine maintenance, and Alana would lead him to her studio, where they would lose themselves in each other's embrace. As the weeks turned into months, their relationship deepened. Dominic encouraged Alana to start painting again in earnest, and she found herself rediscovering her love for art. But their happiness was always tinged with the knowledge that what they were doing was wrong. Alana was racked with guilt over betraying Everett, even as she acknowledged to herself that their marriage had been emotionally over for years. Dominic struggled with his role as the other man, his working-class background making him feel like he could never truly be a part of Alana's world. Their affair was a dangerous dance of close calls and near misses. There was the time Everett came home early from work, forcing Dominic to hide in a closet for over an hour. Another instance saw them having to hastily rearrange Alana's studio when a neighbor dropped by unexpectedly. Each close call added to the thrill of their forbidden romance, but also served as a stark reminder of the precarious nature of their situation. As summer began to wane, both Alana and Dominic knew that things couldn't continue as they were. Something would have to give. Alana had begun to tentatively broach the subject of leaving Everett, while Dominic found himself daydreaming about a future where he and Alana could be together openly. Neither of them could have predicted the tragic turn their story was about to take, or the devastating consequences that awaited them. On that fateful day in July 15th, 2023, dawned bright and oppressively hot, the kind of summer day where the air shimmered with heat and the pavement could fry an egg. Everett Holloway was in New York, scheduled to close a major deal that would cement his status as Pinnacle Investments' top performer. Alana, believing she had the house to herself for the next 2 days, had invited Dominic over under the pretense of checking the air conditioning system. as Dominic's battered work truck pulled into the Holloway's driveway at 10 a.m., Alana felt the familiar flutter of excitement in her stomach. She had spent extra time on her appearance that morning, putting on a flowing sundress that Dominic had once complimented and dabbing on the perfume he loved. When she opened the door, Dominic's appreciative gaze made her feel more alive than she had in years. They barely made it to the studio before falling into each other's arms, their kisses urgent and passionate, as clothes were shed and hands roamed familiar territory. Neither of them heard the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. Everett Holloway was furious. The New York deal had fallen through at the last minute due to a competitor's unexpected maneuver. Facing the prospect of returning to Minneapolis empty-handed and potentially losing his shot at a promotion, Everett had decided to fly home immediately, his mind racing with ways to salvage the situation. As he turned onto the street, his anger simmered, needing only the slightest provocation to boil over. The sight of the plumber's truck in his driveway was that provocation. Everett had never liked the idea of strange men in his house while he was away, and he had specifically told Alana to hold off on any repairs until he returned. Slamming his car door, he stormed towards the house, ready to give both his wife and this presumptuous tradesman a piece of his mind. The scene that greeted Everett as he burst into Alana's studio would be forever seared into his memory. His wife, in a state of undress, was wrapped around a man who was most definitely not a plumber. The primal roar that erupted from Everett startled both Alana and Dominic. In a split second, the room was filled with chaos. Dominic scrambled to pull on his clothes while Alana, her face a mask of horror and guilt, tried to reach for Everett, but Everett was beyond reason. His world had just shattered, and all he saw was red. With a speed that belied his age and usually composed demeanor, Everett lunged at Dominic. The two men collided with a force that sent them crashing into Alana's easel, toppling it and the canvas it held. Alana screamed, a high-pitched sound that seemed to echo in the confined space of the studio. Dominic, younger and physically stronger, managed to shove Everett off him. He tried to reason with the older man, his voice raised but calm, urging him to talk things out. But Everett was past the point of rationality. He lunged again, this time grabbing a heavy sculpture from a nearby shelf and swinging it at Dominic. The makeshift weapon connected with a sickening thud, and Dominic staggered back, blood streaming from a gash on his forehead. Alana, tears streaming down her face, begged Everett to stop, to listen, to calm down. But Everett was deaf to her pleas. He swung the sculpture again, and this time Dominic's instinct for self-preservation kicked in. With a swift and powerful punch, he sent Everett sprawling to the floor. The older man lay still, his breathing shallow, his eyes unfocused. The studio was silent except for the ragged breathing of its three occupants. Alana rushed to Everett's side, her hands shaking as she checked for a pulse. He was alive, but barely conscious. Dominic, his face pale and streaked with blood, stood frowning, his mind racing with the implications of what had just happened. The realization hit them both simultaneously. This wasn't just a fight. This was something far more serious. They had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed, and their actions would have consequences that neither of them could fully comprehend. The scene that greeted Everett as he burst into Alana's studio would be forever seared into his memory. His wife, in a state of undress, was wrapped around a man who was most definitely not a plumber. The primal roar that erupted from Everett startled both Alana and Dominic. In a split second, the room was filled with chaos. Dominic scrambled to pull on his clothes while Alana, her face a mask of horror and guilt, tried to reach for Everett. But Everett was beyond reason. His world had just shattered, and all he saw was red. With a speed that belied his age and usually composed demeanor, Everett lunged at Dominic. The two men collided with a force that sent them crashing into Alana's easel, toppling it and the canvas it held. Alana screamed, a high-pitched sound that seemed to echo in the confined space of the studio. Dominic, younger and physically stronger, managed to shove Everett off him. He tried to reason with the older man, his voice raised but calm, urging him to talk things out. But Everett was past the point of rationality. He lunged again, this time grabbing a heavy sculpture from a nearby shelf and swinging it at Dominic. The makeshift weapon connected with a sickening thud, and Dominic staggered back, blood streaming from a gash on his forehead. Alana, tears streaming down her face, begged Everett to stop, to listen, to calm down, but Everett was deaf to her pleas. He swung the sculpture again, and this time Dominic's instinct for self-preservation kicked in, with a swift and powerful punch. He sent Everett sprawling to the floor. The older man lay still, his breathing shallow, his eyes unfocused. The studio was silent except for the ragged breathing of its 3 occupants. Alana rushed to Everett's side, her hands shaking as she checked for a pulse. He was alive, but barely conscious. Dominic, his face pale and streaked with blood, stood frowning, his mind racing with the implications of what had just happened. The realization hit them both simultaneously. This wasn't just a fight. This was something far more serious. They had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed, and their actions would have consequences that neither of them could fully comprehend. As Alana dialed 911 with trembling fingers, the reality of their situation began to set in. The operator's calm voice did little to soothe her frayed nerves as she explained that her husband had been injured in an accident. She couldn't bring herself to say more, the weight of their deception hanging heavy in the air. Dominic, meanwhile, did his best to stem the bleeding from his forehead, his mind racing with thoughts of what he should do next. He knew that staying would only make things worse, but leaving Alana alone to deal with the aftermath felt equally wrong. When the ambulance arrived, its flashing lights casting an eerie glow on the otherwise tranquil suburban street, Dominic made his decision. He couldn't be there when the paramedics and police arrived. With one last, lingering look at Alana, he slipped out the back door and disappeared into the growing dusk. As the paramedics worked to stabilize Everett, Alana's thoughts were a chaotic whirlwind. She felt a crushing guilt for her part in the events that had led to this moment, but also a deep fear for what the future might hold. Everett was taken to the hospital with a severe concussion and multiple contusions. Alana was left alone in the house, her thoughts racing with worry for both her husband and Dominic. What would happen if Everett decided to press charges? What would become of Dominic, the man she had come to care for so deeply? And what of her own future, now that her marriage was in tatters? The days that followed were a blur of hospital visits, police interviews, and whispered conversations with lawyers. Everett, upon regaining consciousness, chose not to press charges against Dominic. Whether out of a desire to avoid public scandal or some lingering affection for his wife, he decided that a quiet divorce would be the best course of action. Alana was relieved, but also heartbroken. The man she had once loved was now a stranger, and the life they had built together was crumbling around them. Dominic, for his part, had vanished. He had quit his job and left Minneapolis, leaving behind no forwarding address. Alana tried to contact him, but her calls and messages went unanswered. It was as if he had never existed, a figment of a dream that had turned into a nightmare. Alana was left to pick up the pieces of her shattered life. She threw herself into her art, channeling her pain and guilt into her paintings. Her work took on a new depth and intensity, and she began to gain recognition in the local art scene. But the joy she once found in creating was now tinged with sorrow, a constant reminder of what she had lost. Everett, meanwhile, immersed himself in his work, using the demands of his career to distract himself from the emptiness of his personal life. He moved out of the house and into a sleek downtown apartment, leaving behind the suburban life that had once seemed so perfect. As the years passed, Alana and Everett settled into their separate lives. They remained cordial, even friendly, when their paths crossed at social events or in the course of their charitable work. But the bond they had once shared was irreparably broken, a casualty of their choices and the secrets they had kept. And Dominic, he remained a ghost in Alana's memory, a symbol of what might have been. She often wondered where he was, what he was doing, and if he ever thought of her. But she knew that some questions would never be answered, and some wounds would never fully heal. In the end, Alana found a measure of peace in her art, and Everett in his work. They were survivors, each in their own way, of the suburban secrets that had once defined their lives. But the scars of that fateful summer day would remain with them always, a testament to the fragility of trust and the consequences of forbidden love.
If you enjoyed this story and want more thrilling tales, make sure to subscribe to our channel Swift Tales and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for your support.